I'm pretty sure that we did ask Mark Thompson about this, and he said, "No, I wasn't told. I wasn't told what the inquiry was all about." And I don't know whether the Mark Thompson transcript is out yet, but I think the gist of that is in there.
Yeah, I've seen that one. Yes, yeah. And you did press him, it looks like, and you did say, or rather, maybe it was McLean, but I think it was you actually, who sort of said, "Hang on a second, can we just get this straight?" You know, yeah.
Yeah. Now, so just setting that aside for a moment. And this is, let me just say this off the record for the moment.
Yeah.
Well, in fact, it's all off the record, but this is just purely for background. And I think we've sort of talked about this before. It is clear that it is Helen Bowden's view that she told him about the nature of the investigation.
How do you reach that conclusion?
Because she sent us a letter to tell us that.
When did she send you that letter?
Just before the report was published.
You mean in December or this month? Sorry.
No.
In December.
Back in December.
Yeah.
And I think the truth is that I sort of overlooked that. Or I didn't see there was a particular significance in it. Partly because Mark Thompson had said, "No, she didn't tell me about it." It was an open question. She might have done, or she didn't. Clearly, whatever Helen Bowden's recollection was, he was going to say, "That's not my recollection. She didn't tell me about it." But I think it is clear, and Helen Bowden's position is, if she was asked, I think she would say, "I did tell him about it." So that's the position between you and I. It's a slightly awkward position for me, because it's something that actually, if I'd thought about it immediately before publication, and I'd picked up on the significance of it, I think I'd have probably put it in the report. But quite clearly, Mark Thompson would have said, "Well, whatever she says, I think in this case she's wrong, and her recollection is wrong, etc., etc." So it's quite a tricky position, this, I think. And again, this is strictly at the moment solely between you and I, for no purposes other than me discussing it with you.
Okay.
Helen Bowden is pretty relaxed about all this. I've talked to her about that, and I've said to her, "Look, I know you sent us that letter. It was one of these right to reply letters that most of the witnesses had, if we had any sort of criticism to make of them. There was no criticism being made of Helen Bowden that she didn't tell Mark Thompson. So it was a sort of peripheral issue. But she happened to mention in this letter, "Oh yes, I did tell him." And I think that is what she has told anybody at the BBC who was asked. That whatever Mark Thompson says, actually she did tell him. Not I think that she gave him chapter and verse, but she said...
She said the word sex abuse, yeah.
Yeah, I think she said, Newsnight were doing an investigation of Jimmy Savile, and it was about abuse of kids or whatever.
Yeah.
Whether or not there was any reference to BBC premises or not, I don't think she says, and who knows. Now, the slight oddity of this position is that the letter, these right-to-reply letters, I think are known as Salmon letters, after Justice Salmon, who invented them some time ago, they are not being published, and I think probably that's right that they're not being published, because each one of them, I think, is actually from a lawyer on behalf of a client. So the position is that it is Helen Bowden's position that Mark Thompson, that she did tell Mark Thompson about it, but it's not in the record anywhere. So that's how things stand, and I'm just, you've been very straight and very square with me, and I just wanted to let you know what the position is. Now, you could say it doesn't particularly reflect well on me that I overlooked this in the report. It's not in the report that Helen Bowden says, on the record, I did tell Mark Thompson about it. And that's just a fact of life.
Yes.
Now, if somebody went to Helen Bowden and said, I just wanted to check, did you or didn't you tell Mark Bowden? I think she'd say, well, actually, yes, I did. But there's not an obvious way of me making that public, shall we say.
Well, I was thinking there is one possibility. I don't know whether you read the Sunday Times on Sunday, but I wrote a piece in there which made clear that a member of the Commons Media Select Committee has written to Helen Bowden, wrote to her on the 12th of February, asking, and there's been no reply yet, but I wonder whether you feel it would be in your gift, as it were, to independently contact that Member of Parliament and say, look, this is territory which was actually raised on a voluntary basis by Helen Bowden, and she did send us a letter, and I'm happy to confirm that, if that makes any difference to anything at all. I mean, what about that?
Yes, I think the slight danger then, I guess, is that it's a little unpredictable what might happen then. I mean, I'll have a think about that. But there's not an obvious other route to this. I mean, it's absolutely in Helen Bowden's gift to say at any time, either I did tell Mark Thompson, or not only did I tell Mark Thompson, but I told the Pollard Review as well.
Well, one assumes that now that the transcripts have been published, she is going to she's going to seize that opportunity.
Well, if she thinks it's important, and she may not do, to be honest.
Well, I should accept that she's got to respond to this MP. So, I mean, I would guess that she's going to say to the MP, look, thanks for your letter. By the way, I have written to Nick Pollard about this already. Yeah. I mean, I assume that's what she'll do. I mean, that would be, gosh, I mean, that's what I would do. And anyway, I don't think anyone for a second believed that Helen Bowden wouldn't have been asked what the investigation was about and wouldn't have told him what it was about anyway. I mean, it's ridiculous.
No, I think that's right. I mean, common sense suggests that, and certainly, I would say it can only be a subjective thing. A listening to the Ben Webster tape was most people would come to the conclusion that was a guy trying his damnedest not to say yes, of course I knew about it.
Because he'd already stupidly committed himself to a denial.
Well, that's exactly it. He's painted himself into the corner.
Yeah.
So I don't quite know about that. I don't think it's the most important thing to do with this entire process. But
well, you say that, but actually, I've always thought that the head of the organisation, having heard about that, would have been able to either take steps or... I mean, the fact remains that the BBC broadcast tribute programmes to Savile, knowing that they'd had allegations that month that he was a paedophile. Furthermore, if Mark Thompson knew that, he would have had the wit to say, well, hang on, I think this could potentially explode in our faces. What else did this investigation consist of? And at that point, Myrie and Jones would have said, well, we also heard about Gary Glitter and Freddie Starr. And Thompson would have said, my God, well, they're still alive. Well, we're going to have to tell the police about this.
Sure.
And actually, I think it is... This is why I've always pursued it. That is apart from the moral element of it, Nick. Which was always, to my mind. I mean, if you or I heard of some abuse that had taken place in our office, I would bet the farm on either of us saying, well, hang on, we can't just leave this one hanging.
Yeah, no, I agree with that, and I would never want to put myself in the position of defending Mark Thompson, or in that sort of similar way, George Entwistle, who was told about it but didn't react. But I suppose what you don't know is how you might react if somebody said, look, we have a pretty lurid allegation against a presenter who was alive, just died, and this was 30 years ago. But you might be relieved to hear we did an investigation, and the editor of the programme tells me that there was nothing in it. Now, we know that is very, very far from being the whole story, because there was something in it. The editor's decision was wrong. But you know what I mean? If you were a busy exec further up the chain said, and you were told the bad news is we got a pretty ghastly allegation about somebody 30 years ago. The good news is that there anything in it. Phew. Okay, roll on to the next thing. So, that's not an explanation. It's an element of how it came to be brushed under the carpet.
I take your point. I mean, I also think it's fascinating. It's a fascinating insight that the instinct of Mark Thompson was, well, according to Helen Bowden's version, which you've just told me, was to lie about this. Was to say, no, I never heard anything about it. That was his instinct. That tells you an awful lot about the man.
Yeah. I mean, well, yeah.
Sorry, I may be sounding rather black and white about this, but I was always told, you don't lie. You just don't lie.
No, I think that's right. I mean, there's no doubt he painted himself into a corner. And actually, if he'd said, I was told about it, and rightly or wrongly, when I was told that the whole thing had been dropped, I came to the conclusion that meant there was nothing in it. As it turns out, that was wrong, and perhaps I should have double checked. It's not necessarily a happy position to be in, but it's a better position, isn't it? But I think in a way, this is your story, and you made the running on it. I mean, I think what this does is it puts you in a position where you know for sure that Helen Bowden did tell the Pollard inquiry that she told Mark Thompson the nature of the allegations. I think it puts you in a position where you can't say in print how you know this, but you're pretty watertight on the fact that that's the case, because it seems to me, reading between the lines, that you could have heard this from either of two sources. Helen Bowden could have told you, or I could have told you,
or her lawyer could have told me.
Absolutely, I'm sort of including that in the Helen Bowden side of things. But you will gather, I'm in a slightly uneasy position about this, in that I think you would say it was a mistake of mine not to have picked up on this and include it in the report. But
actually, well, of course, I pick up on that, but frankly, that is irrelevant. What is relevant to me is the end result, and the end result is she has gone on the record very happily, willingly, on a voluntary basis, to tell you and others involved in your inquiry that she did tell Mark Thompson. She obviously wanted to make that clear to you. She obviously wanted to do that for a reason, and whether or not you had the time or the opportunity to sit down and include that in your report is frankly irrelevant. You are not. You are. I mean, at the risk of sort of sounding as though I'm belittling your position, but I mean, you are nothing more than the messenger here, and you cannot possibly have included every single element of what you were told in your report. We see from the volume of transcripts before us today that it wouldn't have been possible for you to do that. And, I understand that you were under some time pressure, so I'm not interested in pointing the finger at you. I am interested in establishing whether Mark Thompson did know, through his own second-in-command, Helen Bowden, that this was a sex abuse allegation. And what you've told me is this very important information that she did tell him. Do you know when she told him? Do you remember?
Do I know when she told him? No, is a simple answer to that. But from recollection, I don't think the letter says that. I could have a look, but presumably it is. Well, it's certainly after December the 20th, isn't it? Which was the date of the Caroline Hawley encounter at the drinks party. So whether it was between then and Christmas or a little bit later, I don't know. If there is an indication of it, I'll ping you a date.